Are you ready to uncover the untold mysteries of history and dive into the origins of one of the world's most influential institutions? If you're curious about how faith, politics, and power converged to shape the Catholic Church as we know it, this video is for you. We'll journey through ancient secrets, challenge conventional narratives, and unveil truths hidden in plain sight. Stick with us, because every twist and turn will leave you questioning what you thought you knew. Before we get started, take a moment to subscribe to this channel. Your support brings us closer to our goal of 1,000 subscribers and ensures you won't miss out on future deep dives like this one. By hitting the like button and sharing this video, you'll be part of a growing community that seeks to illuminate history's most intriguing enigmas. Ready to explore the unknown? Let's begin. The roots of Christianity stretch back over 2,000 years, emerging from the teachings and ministry of Jesus Christ in the ancient Roman world. This was a time of profound spiritual yearning and societal upheaval, where new ideas were often met with resistance and persecution. Jesus' message of love, compassion, and salvation resonated deeply with marginalized communities, setting the stage for a movement that would grow beyond his lifetime. His followers, later called Christians, carried this transformative message across the Roman Empire. Despite their humble beginnings, the early Christians faced fierce opposition from Roman authorities who viewed their faith as a threat to traditional beliefs and imperial order. Persecutions were brutal and widespread, yet they served to solidify the resilience and commitment of the growing Christian community. Martyrs became symbols of faith and courage, inspiring countless others to join the cause. After Jesus' crucifixion, his apostles and disciples took on the monumental task of spreading his teachings. Peter, Paul, and other leaders journeyed to distant cities, preaching the gospel and establishing small but fervent Christian communities. These early congregations were characterized by their simplicity, shared resources, and unwavering focus on spiritual growth and mutual support. Over time, as the number of believers grew, these scattered groups began to organize more formally. Meetings in secret homes evolved into structured worship services, complete with prayers, hymns, and readings from sacred texts. The earliest versions of the New Testament began to take shape, providing a written foundation for Christian doctrine and practice. The early church also grappled with internal challenges, such as differing interpretations of Jesus' teachings. Disputes arose over theological concepts like the nature of Christ, the role of the Holy Spirit, and the requirements for salvation. These debates highlighted the need for a unified doctrine, a quest that would continue to shape the church for centuries. Meanwhile, the Roman Empire began to take notice of this growing religious movement. Christianity's emphasis on equality and moral living posed a stark contrast to the hierarchical and often morally ambiguous traditions of Roman society. This dichotomy intrigued many but also alarmed those in power, who saw Christianity as both a cultural and political threat. As Christianity gained traction, it became increasingly clear that its rise was more than just a spiritual awakening, it was also a socio-political phenomenon. The seeds of a transformative force were being sown, one that would eventually redefine not just religious life, but the very fabric of civilization itself. The early Christians were not welcomed by the Roman Empire, which valued conformity to its traditional pagan rituals. To the Romans, Christianity's rejection of polytheism and its exclusive worship of a single god seemed radical and subversive. Christians were often accused of undermining the empire's unity and stability, leading to a cycle of persecution that tested the faith of its followers. From the reign of Emperor Nero in 64 AD to the more systematic persecutions under emperors like Decius and Diocletian, Christians faced brutal punishments. They were blamed for natural disasters, accused of atheism for refusing to worship Roman gods, and executed in public spectacles designed to deter others from joining the faith. Despite the horrors, these trials only strengthened the resolve of Christians. The stories of martyrs became central to the Christian narrative. Figures like Stephen, the first Christian martyr, and Polycarp, a bishop who faced death with unwavering faith, inspired future generations. Their courage and sacrifice demonstrated the depth of their conviction, transforming their suffering into powerful testimonies of faith that converted even some of their persecutors. In the face of persecution, early Christians developed strategies to sustain their communities. Worship was conducted in secret, often in catacombs or private homes, to avoid detection. Symbols like the fish, or ichthyes, were used as discreet identifiers among believers. These clandestine gatherings created a sense of solidarity and mutual support that allowed the faith to endure. The resilience of early Christians also stemmed from their belief in eternal life. The promise of salvation and a heavenly reward gave them hope in the face of suffering. Their conviction that death was not the end but the beginning of a new life with God set them apart from their Roman contemporaries, who viewed death with fear and finality. Persecution, paradoxically, contributed to the growth of Christianity. The sheer tenacity of its adherents and the compelling message of love, redemption, and equality attracted a diverse range of followers, including women, slaves, and the poor. The faith's universal appeal and its focus on hope amidst adversity made it a refuge for the marginalized. By the time the persecutions began to wane, Christianity had already established deep roots across the empire. The movement's survival and expansion under such dire conditions underscored its extraordinary resilience and hinted at its potential to transform the Roman world. The rise of Emperor Constantine marked a turning point in the history of Christianity. Born in 272 AD, Constantine's reign would see the transformation of the faith from a persecuted sect to the favored religion of the Roman Empire. His impact on the Church's development was profound, though not without controversy. Constantine's conversion to Christianity remains a subject of debate among historians. Legend holds that he saw a vision of a cross before the Battle of the Milvian Bridge in 312 AD, accompanied by the words, "In this sign, conquer." Interpreting this as divine favor, Constantine attributed his victory to the Christian God and declared his allegiance to the faith. In 313 AD, Constantine issued the Edict of Milan, granting religious tolerance throughout the empire. This monumental decree ended centuries of persecution and allowed Christians to worship openly. The edict also restored property that had been confiscated during earlier persecutions, signaling a new era of acceptance and favor for the Church. Constantine's influence extended beyond legal protections. He actively supported the Church, commissioning the construction of grand basilicas like St. Peter's in Rome and the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem. These architectural marvels symbolized the newfound prominence of Christianity and established it as a visible and powerful presence in the empire. However, Constantine's involvement in the Church was not purely altruistic. As a shrewd politician, he recognized the potential of Christianity to unify his diverse and fractious empire. By aligning himself with the faith, he sought to consolidate power and legitimacy, leveraging religion as a tool for governance. One of Constantine's most significant contributions was his role in the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD. Convened to resolve theological disputes, particularly the Arian controversy over the nature of Christ, the council established foundational doctrines of Christianity. The Nicene Creed, formulated during this meeting, remains a cornerstone of Christian belief to this day. While Constantine's embrace of Christianity was instrumental in its rise, his motives and methods have been scrutinized. Was his faith genuine, or was it a calculated move to harness the growing influence of the Church for political gain? This question continues to spark debate among scholars and theologians. Constantine's legacy is a complex blend of faith and strategy. By intertwining the destinies of the Roman Empire and the Christian Church, he set the stage for a new chapter in religious and world history, a chapter that would see the Church evolve from an underground movement to a dominant force. The Council of Nicaea, convened in 325 AD, was a pivotal moment in the history of Christianity. It marked the first ecumenical council of the Church, bringing together bishops from across the Roman Empire to address pressing theological disputes. Presided over by Constantine, this gathering sought to unify Christian doctrine and establish a common foundation for the faith. The central issue at the council was the Arian controversy, named after Arius, a priest from Alexandria who argued that Christ was not equal to God the Father but a created being. This view challenged the traditional understanding of the Trinity and threatened to divide the Church. The council sought to resolve this debate and assert a unified position. After intense deliberation, the council rejected Arius's teachings as heretical and affirmed the divinity of Christ. The Nicene Creed, a statement of faith, was drafted to articulate the Church's stance on the nature of Christ and the Trinity. This creed not only clarified theological concepts but also established a precedent for resolving doctrinal disputes. The Council of Nicaea also addressed other important matters, such as the calculation of Easter and the organization of church hierarchy. These decisions reflected the growing institutionalization of Christianity and its transition from a grassroots movement to a structured organization. While the Council achieved significant milestones, it was not without controversy. The involvement of Constantine, a political leader, in theological matters raised concerns about the independence of the Church. Critics argued that the merging of church and state risked compromising the spiritual integrity of the faith. The Council's decisions had far-reaching implications. By defining orthodoxy and condemning heresy, it established boundaries for Christian belief and practice. This approach to doctrinal authority would become a hallmark of the Church, shaping its development for centuries to come. The legacy of the Council of Nicaea is both celebrated and debated. It laid the groundwork for a unified Christian identity but also set the stage for future conflicts over doctrinal authority and interpretation. As the first major gathering of the Church, it symbolized the beginning of a new era, one where Christianity would wield both spiritual and political power. Through the Nicene Creed and its resolutions, the Council of Nicaea solidified its place as a cornerstone of Christian history. It demonstrated the Church's ability to adapt and organize in the face of challenges, ensuring its survival and growth in an increasingly complex world. The transformation of Christianity into a state religion was not an overnight event but a gradual process shaped by alliances between the Church and political authorities. This symbiotic relationship began under Constantine and continued to evolve, intertwining the destinies of the Church and the Roman Empire. With Constantine's endorsement, the Church gained unprecedented access to imperial resources and influence. Bishops were granted judicial authority, allowing them to settle disputes and govern with the backing of Roman law. This integration of church and state blurred the lines between spiritual and secular authority. Emperors after Constantine, such as Theodosius I, solidified this alliance. In 380 AD, Theodosius declared Christianity the official religion of the Roman Empire, outlawing pagan practices and establishing the Church as a central pillar of governance. This decree marked the culmination of Christianity's rise to prominence within the imperial system. However, this newfound power came with challenges. The Church's alignment with the state introduced political dynamics into its internal affairs. Bishops and clergy often found themselves navigating the complex interplay of spiritual duties and political ambitions, leading to tensions and corruption. The Church's role in state matters also extended to military campaigns. Religious leaders blessed armies and sanctified wars, framing them as divine missions. This blending of faith and politics further entrenched the Church's influence but also raised ethical questions about its involvement in worldly affairs. Critics argue that the Church's alliance with political power compromised its spiritual mission. By adopting the structures and practices of the Roman state, it risked losing its identity as a community of faith and becoming an instrument of imperial control. This tension between spiritual purity and institutional power would persist throughout its history. Despite these challenges, the Church's partnership with political authorities enabled it to expand its reach and consolidate its position. The fusion of religious and secular power created a framework for governing not only the spiritual lives of believers but also the social and cultural fabric of society. This alliance laid the foundation for the Church's enduring influence, shaping the medieval and modern worlds. It also highlighted the complexities of balancing faith with power, a dynamic that continues to shape the Church's legacy and role in contemporary society. As Christianity evolved, theology became the backbone of its growth and authority. The intellectual exploration of divine truths, human nature, and salvation played a pivotal role in solidifying the Church's position as both a spiritual and academic institution. Theology was not merely a scholarly pursuit, it was a tool to define orthodoxy, unify believers, and counter heretical ideas. Early theological debates focused on fundamental questions about the nature of God, Christ, and the Holy Spirit. The doctrine of the Trinity, a cornerstone of Christian belief, emerged from these discussions. Theologians like Athanasius of Alexandria championed the view that God exists as three persons in one essence, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, a concept that became central to Christian teaching. These debates were not confined to academia, they had real-world implications. Disputes over theological issues often led to divisions within the Church, prompting the need for councils to resolve conflicts and establish doctrinal unity. The Council of Nicaea, for example, addressed the Arian controversy, ensuring that the divinity of Christ was affirmed and unified across the Church. Theology also served as a response to external challenges. As Christianity spread, it encountered diverse philosophies and religions. Early theologians like Augustine of Hippo engaged with Greco-Roman thought, blending Christian doctrine with elements of classical philosophy. Augustine's works, such as The City of God, not only defended Christianity but also articulated a vision of divine order that influenced medieval thought. In addition to shaping doctrine, theology reinforced the Church's authority by offering moral and ethical guidance. It addressed pressing issues such as the nature of sin, the path to salvation, and the role of the Church as a mediator between God and humanity. This moral framework provided a sense of order and purpose for believers, further solidifying the Church's influence. The rise of monasticism also played a crucial role in theological development. Monastic communities became centers of learning and theological inquiry, preserving ancient texts and producing new interpretations of Scripture. Figures like Thomas Aquinas expanded on these traditions, creating comprehensive theological systems that continue to impact Christian thought. While theology elevated the Church's intellectual stature, it also sparked controversy. Efforts to define orthodoxy often marginalized alternative views, leading to accusations of suppression and control. The Church's insistence on doctrinal conformity sometimes stifled creativity and dissent, as seen in cases like the trial of Galileo. Despite these tensions, theology remained a powerful force in shaping the Church's identity and mission. It provided a framework for understanding the divine, navigating life's challenges, and fostering a sense of spiritual community. Through its theological pursuits, the Church established itself as a guiding light in a complex and ever-changing world. One of the most intriguing aspects of the Church's history is its integration of pagan traditions into Christian practices. This strategic adaptation allowed Christianity to grow and resonate with diverse cultures, making it more accessible to converts across the Roman Empire and beyond. The blending of faiths, while controversial, played a critical role in the Church's expansion. As Christianity spread, it encountered deeply rooted pagan traditions that shaped local communities. Rather than eradicating these customs outright, Church leaders often sought to adapt them, reinterpreting pagan symbols and rituals through a Christian lens. This approach helped bridge the gap between old beliefs and the new faith. A prominent example is the celebration of Christmas, which was aligned with the Roman festival of Saturnalia and the winter solstice. By situating the birth of Christ during this period, the Church provided a Christian alternative to existing festivities, allowing converts to retain familiar traditions while embracing their new faith. Similarly, Easter, celebrating Christ's resurrection, coincided with spring festivals that symbolized renewal and rebirth. The incorporation of eggs and rabbits, symbols of fertility in pagan cultures, exemplifies how these traditions were seamlessly woven into Christian practices. This syncretism eased the transition for converts and reinforced the universality of the faith. The use of the cross as a Christian symbol also reflects this integration. While now synonymous with Christ's sacrifice, the cross held significance in various ancient cultures as a representation of life and power. By adopting this symbol, the Church connected its teachings with familiar concepts, enhancing its appeal. Church leaders also reimagined sacred spaces, converting pagan temples into Christian churches. This practice not only repurposed existing structures but also symbolized the triumph of Christianity over earlier religions. By physically and spiritually transforming these spaces, the Church reinforced its authority and presence. While these adaptations facilitated the spread of Christianity, they also sparked debate. Critics argue that the blending of traditions diluted the purity of Christian teachings, introducing elements that were not originally part of the faith. However, supporters view this syncretism as a practical and inclusive strategy that allowed Christianity to thrive in diverse environments. The integration of pagan traditions demonstrates the Church's ability to adapt and innovate. By embracing elements of local cultures, it created a faith that felt both universal and personal. This flexibility allowed Christianity to transcend its origins and establish itself as a global religion with deep historical and cultural roots. Hey there, if you're enjoying this journey into the fascinating history of faith and power, we need your help to keep growing. We're on a mission to reach 1,000 subscribers, and every single subscription makes a huge difference. By hitting that subscribe button, you're not just supporting this channel, you're joining a community of curious minds who love diving deep into untold stories and hidden truths. Together, we can expand this platform and bring even more captivating content to life. Your support matters more than you know. Imagine being part of the foundation of something incredible. Every new subscriber brings us one step closer to achieving our goal and creating a space where history and discovery thrive. So, don't wait, click subscribe now, and let's make history together. One of the Catholic Church's most enduring legacies is its role in the development, preservation, and dissemination of sacred texts. The Bible, as we know it today, was meticulously compiled, edited, and canonized by early church leaders who sought to establish a unified foundation for Christian belief. This monumental task involved selecting, organizing, and interpreting texts that would shape the spiritual lives of billions. The process of canonization began in the early centuries of Christianity when numerous writings circulated among believers. Gospels, letters, and apocalyptic visions were shared, debated, and revered, but not all texts held equal weight. The Church sought to determine which writings were divinely inspired and aligned with its growing doctrinal framework. Councils played a pivotal role in this process. By the 4th century, gatherings like the Synod of Hippo, 393 AD, and the Council of Carthage, 397 AD, formalized the canon of the New Testament. Texts such as the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John were affirmed, while others, like the Gospel of Thomas, were excluded for their perceived theological inconsistencies. Translation was another significant aspect of the Church's work with sacred texts. The Vulgate, translated by Saint Jerome in the late 4th century, became the authoritative Latin version of the Bible for centuries. This monumental effort ensured that the scriptures were accessible to the clergy and scholars who played central roles in preserving Christian teachings. Monastic communities were instrumental in safeguarding these texts. Through painstaking transcription, monks meticulously copied manuscripts, ensuring their survival through turbulent times. These scriptoriums also introduced illuminated manuscripts, blending artistry with devotion and creating some of history's most exquisite religious works. However, the Church's control over sacred texts also sparked controversy. Critics argue that its role as gatekeeper allowed it to suppress dissenting viewpoints and alternative gospels. The removal of certain writings from the canon, combined with its reluctance to translate the Bible into vernacular languages for centuries, fueled accusations of censorship and exclusivity. Despite these criticisms, the Church's stewardship of sacred texts ensured the preservation and proliferation of Christian teachings. It provided a spiritual compass for believers and a framework for understanding faith. The Bible, as curated by the Catholic Church, remains one of the most influential books in history, shaping moral, cultural, and intellectual traditions worldwide. The creation and preservation of sacred texts exemplify the Catholic Church's enduring commitment to guiding its followers through divine wisdom. These efforts laid the foundation for centuries of faith, scholarship, and cultural development, leaving an indelible mark on human civilization. Art and architecture became powerful tools for the Catholic Church to assert its authority and inspire awe among its followers. From grand cathedrals to intricate mosaics, the Church's visual legacy transcends the boundaries of time and geography, embedding itself deeply into the fabric of human culture and spirituality. The construction of monumental cathedrals during the medieval period exemplifies the Church's architectural ambition. Structures like Notre Dame de Paris and Chartres Cathedral were designed to reach toward the heavens, symbolizing divine grandeur. These awe-inspiring buildings not only served as places of worship but also reinforced the church's status as the earthly representative of God. Inside these cathedrals, art played a transformative role. Stained glass windows, frescoes, and sculptures depicted biblical stories and saints' lives, serving as visual sermons for largely illiterate congregations. These masterpieces conveyed theological messages, encouraging reverence and obedience among believers. The church's patronage extended to individual artists whose works defined entire eras. During the Renaissance, figures like Michelangelo and Raphael created iconic pieces, such as the Sistine Chapel ceiling and the School of Athens, which celebrated the intersection of divine inspiration and human creativity. These works reinforced the church's cultural supremacy and its role as a guardian of spiritual and intellectual pursuits. Religious art also carried deep symbolic meanings. For instance, the Virgin Mary was often depicted as a compassionate intercessor, embodying the church's role as a mediator between humanity and God. These images were not just decorative but instrumental in shaping devotional practices and theological understanding. The use of sacred spaces and visual storytelling extended beyond Europe. As missionaries spread Christianity to the Americas, Africa, and Asia, they incorporated local artistic traditions into their religious works. This blend of cultural styles created unique expressions of faith that resonated with diverse communities, facilitating conversion and integration. Critics, however, have questioned the church's use of wealth and resources for artistic endeavors. The opulence of cathedrals and religious art contrasted sharply with the poverty of many believers, leading to accusations of materialism and misplaced priorities. These tensions would later fuel movements like the Protestant Reformation. Despite these critiques, the Church's investment in art and architecture left an enduring legacy. These creations remain symbols of human achievement and spiritual devotion, drawing millions of visitors each year and continuing to inspire awe and wonder. Through its artistic and architectural achievements, the Catholic Church established itself as a cultural and spiritual beacon. It used beauty and grandeur to convey its authority, ensuring that its influence extended far beyond the confines of doctrine and ritual. Education was a cornerstone of the Catholic Church's strategy to expand its influence and solidify its role as a cultural and intellectual leader. By shaping the minds of future generations, the Church ensured that its teachings and values became deeply embedded in society, leaving a profound impact on Western civilization. The medieval period saw the rise of monastic schools, where monks and clergy preserved and transmitted knowledge. These schools were often the sole centers of learning, focusing on theology, philosophy, and the liberal arts. By controlling education, the Church maintained its position as the primary custodian of intellectual life. As the Church's influence grew, so did its educational ambitions. The establishment of universities in the 12th and 13th centuries, such as the University of Paris and the University of Bologna, marked a turning point in the history of education. These institutions, often founded under church auspices, became hubs of intellectual inquiry and debate. The curriculum at these universities reflected the Church's priorities, emphasizing scholasticism, a method of critical thinking that sought to reconcile faith and reason. Thinkers like Thomas Aquinas embodied this approach, blending Aristotelian philosophy with Christian theology in works that remain foundational to Western thought. Religious education also extended to the laity, though in a more limited form. Through sermons, catechisms, and parish schools, the Church sought to instill moral and spiritual principles in the general population. This emphasis on education reinforced the Church's teachings and strengthened its connection to the broader community. Missionary efforts brought the Church's educational mission to new territories. In the Americas, Asia, and Africa, religious orders like the Jesuits established schools and universities that combined Christian doctrine with local knowledge. These institutions not only spread the faith but also created cultural bridges that facilitated mutual understanding and exchange. Critics, however, have pointed to the Church's role in controlling knowledge and suppressing dissenting ideas. The restriction of access to certain texts and the condemnation of heretical teachings stifled intellectual diversity and innovation, leading to accusations of censorship and authoritarianism. Despite these challenges, the Catholic Church's contributions to education cannot be overstated. It preserved the intellectual heritage of antiquity, fostered critical thinking, and laid the groundwork for the modern university system. Its emphasis on learning and scholarship continues to shape the academic and cultural landscape of the world. Through its educational endeavors, the Church not only advanced its mission but also enriched human civilization. It created a legacy of knowledge and inquiry that transcends its religious origins, inspiring generations to explore the mysteries of faith and reason. The Counter-Reformation, also known as the Catholic Reformation, was the Church's response to the Protestant Reformation that began in the 16th century. This period marked a critical juncture in the Church's history, as it sought to reaffirm its doctrines, address internal corruption, and reassert its authority in a rapidly changing religious landscape. One of the key catalysts for the Counter-Reformation was Martin Luther's 95 Theses, which challenged church practices like the sale of indulgences. This sparked widespread dissent and led to the emergence of Protestant movements across Europe. Recognizing the existential threat, the Catholic Church initiated a series of reforms to counteract these developments. The Council of Trent, 1545 to 1563, was the centerpiece of the Counter-Reformation. This ecumenical council clarified Catholic doctrine, addressed abuses within the Church, and reaffirmed key teachings, such as the authority of the Pope, the role of tradition alongside Scripture, and the necessity of good works for salvation. It also standardized the Mass and established the Roman Catechism to guide priests in teaching the faith. Religious orders played a pivotal role in the Counter-Reformation. The Jesuits, founded by Ignatius of Loyola in 1540, became the Church's most effective agents of reform and expansion. Known for their intellectual rigor and missionary zeal, the Jesuits established schools, colleges, and seminaries worldwide, countering Protestant influence and spreading Catholic education. Art and architecture also became tools of the Counter-Reformation. The Baroque style, characterized by grandeur and emotional intensity, was employed to inspire devotion and demonstrate the Church's renewed vitality. Masterpieces like Bernini's St. Peter's Baldachin and Caravaggio's dramatic religious paintings conveyed the Church's spiritual power and beauty. The Counter-Reformation was not only defensive but also proactive. It expanded the Church's missionary efforts, particularly in the Americas and Asia, where Catholic missionaries sought to convert indigenous populations. These missions aimed to bolster Catholic influence globally, ensuring the Church's presence in new territories. Critics, however, highlight the repressive measures of the Counter-Reformation. The Inquisition intensified its activities, targeting heretics and dissenters, while the Index of Forbidden Books sought to control the flow of ideas. These actions underscored the Church's determination to maintain orthodoxy but also drew accusations of authoritarianism. Ultimately, the Counter-Reformation revitalized the Catholic Church. It reaffirmed its core doctrines, addressed many of the criticisms that had fueled the Protestant Reformation, and strengthened its global influence. The reforms of this period left an enduring legacy, shaping the Church's identity and approach to challenges in the centuries to come. During the Age of Exploration, the Catholic Church played a central role in the colonization of the Americas, Africa, and Asia. Religious motivations were deeply intertwined with political and economic ambitions, as European powers sought to expand their territories and convert indigenous populations to Christianity. Missionaries were at the forefront of these efforts. Religious orders like the Jesuits, Franciscans, and Dominicans established missions to evangelize local populations. These missions aimed to spread the gospel, provide education, and integrate indigenous communities into the colonial framework, often replacing traditional beliefs and practices with Christian ones. The doctrine of discovery, endorsed by papal bulls such as Inter Cetera, 1493, provided theological justification for European colonization. This doctrine granted Christian monarchs the right to claim lands inhabited by non-Christian peoples, framing conquest and conversion as a divine mandate. While many missionaries genuinely sought to protect indigenous populations and improve their lives, the Church's role in colonial expansion was not without controversy. Forced conversions, suppression of native cultures, and the exploitation of local resources often accompanied missionary efforts. The Church's alignment with colonial powers blurred the line between spiritual mission and political domination. The blending of Christian and indigenous traditions resulted in unique cultural expressions. In Latin America, for example, Catholicism adopted elements of local spirituality, creating syncretic practices that persist to this day. The Virgin of Guadalupe, a symbol of Mexican identity, exemplifies this fusion of faiths. Critics argue that the Church's involvement in colonization contributed to the cultural erasure and marginalization of indigenous peoples. However, others highlight the positive contributions of missionaries who advocated for the rights of native populations, such as Bartolomé de las Casas, who condemned the mistreatment of indigenous peoples by European settlers. The legacy of the Church's role in colonial expansion is complex. It facilitated the spread of Christianity to new continents, shaping global religious demographics, but it also left a lasting impact on indigenous cultures and societies. This dual legacy continues to spark reflection and debate in the modern era. The Inquisition is one of the most infamous institutions in the history of the Catholic Church. Established to combat heresy, it evolved into a powerful tool for enforcing doctrinal conformity and suppressing dissent. Its methods and legacy have left a profound mark on the perception of the Church's authority and its approach to orthodoxy. The roots of the Inquisition date back to the 12th century when the Church faced challenges from heretical movements like the Cathars. In response, it established inquisitorial courts to identify, try, and punish heretics. These courts operated under the principle that preserving the purity of the faith justified their actions. The Spanish Inquisition, established in 1478, became the most notorious iteration of this institution. Initially aimed at rooting out false converts among Jews and Muslims, it expanded to target Protestants, witches, and other perceived threats to Catholic orthodoxy. Its use of torture, public executions, and censorship instilled fear and compliance. The Inquisition's activities were not limited to Europe. It extended to the Americas, where it sought to control religious practices among indigenous populations and European settlers. By suppressing alternative spiritual traditions, the Inquisition reinforced the dominance of Catholicism in colonial territories. Critics view the Inquisition as a dark chapter in the Church's history, highlighting its harsh methods and disregard for individual rights. Many see it as an example of the dangers of combining religious authority with unchecked power. However, defenders argue that it reflected the norms of its time and was motivated by a sincere desire to protect the faith. Despite its controversial legacy, the Inquisition had a lasting impact on the Catholic Church. It reinforced the importance of doctrinal conformity and the central authority of the Church. It also contributed to the development of legal and bureaucratic systems that influenced modern governance. The Inquisition's legacy serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of religious intolerance and authoritarianism. It reminds us of the need to balance faith with compassion and to uphold the dignity of individuals while protecting the integrity of spiritual beliefs. The Enlightenment era posed significant challenges to the Catholic Church. The rise of science, reason, and secularism questioned traditional religious authority, prompting the Church to adapt and modernize. This period of transformation reshaped the Church's relationship with the world and its role in contemporary society. The 19th and 20th centuries witnessed a series of reforms aimed at addressing these challenges. The First Vatican Council, 1869 to 1870, affirmed the doctrine of papal infallibility, strengthening the authority of the Pope in matters of faith and morals. This declaration sought to unify the Church amidst growing ideological diversity. The Second Vatican Council, 1962 to 1965, marked a watershed moment in the Church's modernization. It introduced sweeping changes, including the use of vernacular languages in the Mass, increased emphasis on ecumenism, and a renewed focus on social justice. These reforms aim to make the Church more accessible and relevant to modern believers. Social and political engagement became central to the Church's mission. Encyclicals like Rerum Novarum, 1891, addressed issues of workers' rights and economic justice, while figures like Pope John Paul II played pivotal roles in global affairs, including the fall of communism in Eastern Europe. The Church also embraced advancements in science and technology. Statements from the Vatican recognize the compatibility of faith and reason, signaling a departure from earlier conflicts like the Galileo affair. This openness to dialogue with the scientific community reflected the Church's commitment to staying relevant in an evolving world. Critics argue that the Church's modernization efforts have not gone far enough, particularly on issues like gender equality and LGBTQ+ rights. However, proponents highlight its strides in fostering inclusivity and addressing contemporary challenges. The Church's journey through the Enlightenment and beyond demonstrates its resilience and adaptability. By embracing reform while preserving its core teachings, it has continued to be a guiding force for millions of believers worldwide. In the 21st century, the Catholic Church remains one of the most influential institutions in the world. Its spiritual, cultural, and social impact continues to shape the lives of billions, but it also faces new challenges and opportunities as it navigates an increasingly complex global landscape. The Church's charitable work remains a cornerstone of its mission. From providing education and healthcare to advocating for human rights and environmental stewardship, it continues to embody the teachings of Christ in practical and transformative ways. Initiatives like Pope Francis's Laudato Si highlight its commitment to addressing global issues like climate change. However, the Church also grapples with internal and external controversies. The ongoing revelations of abuse scandals and cover-ups have damaged its credibility and sparked calls for greater transparency and accountability. Addressing these issues is critical to restoring trust and reaffirming its moral authority. The Catholic Church's global reach presents unique opportunities for interfaith dialogue and peacemaking. By fostering understanding among diverse religious traditions, it can play a vital role in promoting unity and reconciliation in a divided world. Technological advancements and changing cultural dynamics pose both challenges and opportunities. The Church must find ways to engage with younger generations while preserving its traditions. Social media and digital platforms offer new avenues for evangelization, but they also require the Church to adapt its communication strategies. The Church's legacy is one of resilience, adaptation, and profound influence. It has survived and thrived through centuries of upheaval, leaving an indelible mark on human history. As it moves forward, it must balance its rich heritage with a willingness to evolve, ensuring that it remains a beacon of hope, faith, and guidance for future generations. Through its enduring presence, the Catholic Church continues to inspire, challenge, and shape the world, reminding us of the power of faith to transcend time and transform lives. As we come to the end of this incredible journey through the history, evolution, and influence of the Catholic Church, let us reflect on its enduring message: faith, hope, and love. These values have not only shaped civilizations but also continue to guide billions of lives worldwide. Whether through the teachings of Jesus, the preservation of sacred texts, or the powerful legacy of art and service, the Church reminds us of the strength found in community and belief. If this exploration has inspired you, consider taking the next step on this journey of faith and discovery. Subscribe to this channel and follow the path of Jesus. By joining our community, you're not just a viewer, you're a vital part of a growing family united by a love for truth, history, and spirituality. Every subscription helps us reach our goal of 1,000 subscribers, amplifying our mission to share meaningful content with the world. Don't stop here. Share this video with someone who could benefit from understanding the richness of the Catholic tradition. Together, we can spread a message of love and enlightenment to a world in need. Hit the like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and turn on notifications so you never miss a moment of our journey together. Hello, my name is Josue, and it's been an honor to guide you through today's exploration. As a passionate seeker of truth and faith, I believe in the power of history to illuminate our present and inspire our future. My goal with every video is to bring us closer to understanding our shared spiritual heritage and how it continues to shape our lives. Thank you for spending your time here with me today. It means so much to have your support, and I want you to know that this channel exists because of viewers like you. Together, we're building something special, a space where curiosity and faith meet, where questions are welcomed, and where we grow as a community. I look forward to connecting with you again in the next video. Until then, may peace and blessings be with you, and may you walk confidently in the light of truth. Take care, and don't forget, subscribe to join our journey, and follow Jesus as we continue to explore the wonders of faith and history together. See you soon.